Fractured Symphony. Chapter 1, Symphony of Static. A sterile white ceiling swam into focus, the harsh, fluorescent lights sending Corvus's head throbbing. Disoriented, he squeezed his eyes shut, trying to grasp at any memory, any shred of identity. His mind felt like a shattered mirror, reflecting fragmented images. Flashes of a sterile lab, a woman with fiery red hair, a sense of desperate flight. Panic clawed at his throat, a soundless scream trapped in his dry, raw mouth. He tried to move, but his limbs felt heavy, unresponsive. A low hum pulsed in his ears, morphing into a cacophony of voices, each one a frantic scream, a desperate plea, a choked sob. It was overwhelming, 1,000 thoughts crammed into the confines of his skull. He squeezed his eyes shut again, willing the voices to recede. A soft touch on his arm startled him. He cracked open one eye, wincing at the harsh light. A woman, her face etched with worry lines, leaned over him. Her hair, a vibrant red like the flash in his fragmented memory, held flecks of gray at the temples. "Easy there," she said, her voice surprisingly calm amidst the mental storm raging within him. "Don't try to move too quickly." Who are you?" Corvus rasped, his throat sandpaper coarse. "Dr. Amara Chandra," she replied, a hint of a smile tugging at the corner of her lips. "And you, my friend, are in a bit of a predicament." Slowly, Corvus managed to sit up, the world tilting slightly on its axis. The metallic tang of fear flooded his mouth. The voices, though muted, still whispered in the back of his mind, a constant undercurrent of chaos. He looked around the stark white room, devoid of any personal effects, any clue to who he was. "Where am I?" he croaked, the question echoing the hollowness he felt inside. "A safe place for now," Dr. Chandra said evasively. She motioned to a glass of water on the bedside table. "Drink this, you'll feel better." Hesitantly, Corvus picked it up, the coolness of the glass a comfort against the frantic heat crawling over his skin. He took a small sip, the water a relief to his parched throat. "What happened?" he asked, his voice gaining a sliver of strength. Dr. Chandra hesitated, then sat down on a chair beside the bed. Her gaze held a mixture of sadness and determination. "There's a lot to explain, Corvus. Things you might not be ready to hear." He felt a tremor of fear shoot through him. "Explain what?" A sigh escaped Dr. Chandra's lips. "This isn't your first memory gap, Corvus. This incident triggered it." A wave of nausea washed over him. "What incident?" The doctor's eyes flickered away, then back to him. "The fracturing," she said, her voice a low murmur. "It's everywhere, Corvus, in every mind. Can you feel it?" Corvus squeezed his eyes shut, the voices rising back up to a crescendo. He flinched, overwhelmed by the torrent of emotions and fragmented thoughts. "It's too loud," he whispered, his voice lost in the symphony of static. Dr. Chandra placed a hand on his arm, a grounding touch in the maelstrom. "It will take time, Corvus," she said gently, "but you're not alone in this. You're special, Corvus, and we need your help." Chapter 2, Whispers and Refuge. Corvus lay in the sterile bed, the fluorescent lights feeling like a constant interrogation. The symphony of fractured voices had subsided somewhat, replaced by a dull ache behind his eyes. Dr. Chandra sat by his side, her face etched with worry lines even deeper than before. "How long have I been like this?" he mumbled, the silence pressing down on him. Dr. Chandra looked up, a flicker of pain crossing her features. "Days, Corvus, maybe even weeks. We found you unconscious near a government research facility." His stomach lurched. Research facility. The fragmented memory of the lab flashed again, a cold and sterile environment devoid of warmth. "What kind of research?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "The kind they shouldn't be meddling with," Dr. Chandra replied, her voice tight. "They were messing with the human mind, Corvus, trying to unlock something they don't understand." A shiver ran down his spine. "Unlock what?" Dr. Chandra hesitated, then leaned closer, her voice dropping to a low murmur. "Latent psychic abilities. Abilities some believe have been dormant within humanity for millennia." Corvus scoffed, a dry laugh escaping his lips. "Psychic abilities? That's ridiculous." Dr. Chandra didn't flinch. "Is it? Tell me, Corvus, why can you suddenly hear the thoughts of others? Why does their pain feel like your own?" He recoiled, a surge of fear gripping him. The fractured voices, were they real? Were they the thoughts of others bleeding into his mind? "It's not real," he stammered, willing the voices to be silenced. "It is real, Corvus," Dr. Chandra said gently, "but it's not what you think. The government's experiment went wrong. They fractured human minds, creating a chaotic hive mind they call the collective." The word sent chills down his spine. He closed his eyes, the fractured voices starting to rise again, a cacophony of fear and confusion. But this time, amidst the chaos, he sensed something else, a spark of clarity, a flicker of a young girl's voice. "Help us!" the voice pleaded, barely audible above the din. "Please, help us!" Corvus flinched, confused and terrified. He looked at Dr. Chandra, his voice trembling. "There's a girl. In my head?" Dr. Chandra's eyes widened. "You can hear them?" He nodded slowly, overwhelmed by the sheer number of voices. But the girl's plea echoed most clearly. "They're not all bad," Dr. Chandra said, a glimmer of hope in her voice. "There are those within the collective who are scared, confused. They just want the fracturing to stop." The revelation stunned him. The collective wasn't just a monster. It held fragments of humanity, of individuals trapped in chaos. A surge of empathy, a strange connection bloomed within him. "What can we do?" he asked, a newfound determination settling in his voice. Dr. Chandra smiled, a small, sad smile. "There's a place, Corvus, a hidden settlement of people like us, those affected by the fracturing. We're trying to find a way to heal the broken minds, to stop the collective from consuming everything." Corvus swallowed hard. A hidden settlement? People like him? A sliver of hope pierced through the fog of fear and confusion. "Take me there," he whispered, a newfound sense of purpose stirring within him. Chapter 3, City of Broken Melodies. The journey to the hidden settlement was a blur of nervous anticipation and gnawing fear. Dr. Chandra steered the beat-up hovercar through abandoned highways, choked with rusted vehicles, remnants of a world before the fracturing. The fractured voices were fainter here, replaced by a tense silence that hung heavy in the air. Corvus sat beside her, his senses on high alert. The fragments of his memory remained elusive, flickering like dying embers. Yet the connection with the girl within the collective persisted, a faint tremor amidst the silence. "How much further?" he finally asked, the silence pressing down on him. Dr. Chandra glanced at him, her eyes filled with a weary determination. "Not far now, Corvus. Just hold on a little longer." They continued in silence, the desolate landscape stretching before them like a barren wasteland. Corvus couldn't help but notice the faint tremors running through his hands, a low hum resonating within him. It was unlike anything he'd ever experienced, a feeling of connection, of being part of something vast and powerful. Suddenly the hovercar jolted, a loud clang echoing from underneath. Dr. Chandra swore, her knuckles white as she gripped the steering wheel. "What was that?" Corvus asked, a surge of adrenaline coursing through him. "Flat tire," Dr. Chandra muttered, pulling the car over to a crumbling overpass. They emerged into the harsh sunlight, the heat radiating off the cracked asphalt. Dr. Chandra surveyed the tire, her face grim. "Looks like we're on foot for the rest of the way." They unloaded a small backpack from the back of the hovercar, containing meager supplies and a worn map. The journey on foot was arduous, the sun a relentless tormentor. The fractured voices started to seep back into Corvus's mind, a low, chaotic murmur. He focused on the girl's voice, a beacon of hope amidst the storm. As they rounded a bend, a sprawling network of caves carved into the cliff face emerged before them. Buildings, crudely constructed from salvaged materials, clung precariously to the rock face. Smoke curled from chimneys, a sign of life in this desolate world. "Welcome to Haven," Dr. Chandra said, a flicker of relief crossing her features. They were met at the entrance by a wiry man with a weathered face and eyes that held a sharp intelligence. He eyed Corvus with suspicion. "Dr. Chandra," he said, his voice gruff. "Didn't expect company." "Elias," Dr. Chandra replied, a tired smile gracing her lips. "This is Corvus. He needs our help." The man, Elias, scrutinized Corvus for a long moment before finally nodding. "Come on then," he said gruffly. "Let's see what we're dealing with." Inside the cave city, a sense of community hummed despite the ever-present awareness of the fractured world outside. Children with strange, glowing eyes ran through makeshift streets, Adults with muted expressions exchanged cautious greetings. Corvus felt a wave of empathy wash over him, a connection with these people who shared his burden. He wasn't alone anymore. They were led to a dimly lit chamber where a woman with long, flowing white hair sat cross-legged on a cushion. Her eyes, the color of twilight, opened and met Corvus's gaze. A wave of serenity washed over him, a temporary respite from the fractured symphony within. "Welcome, Corvus," she said, her voice soft and melodic. "We've been expecting you." Corvus felt a flicker of fear mixed with a strange sense of belonging. He was in Haven, a city of broken melodies. But here, amidst the chaos, he might just find the harmony he craved. Chapter 4. Echoes of a Shattered Mind. Days bled into weeks in the hidden haven. Corvus found himself surrounded by a kaleidoscope of fractured minds, each with their own unique manifestation of the fracturing. He witnessed a young boy who could paint vivid emotions onto canvases, his brushstrokes mirroring the turmoil within the collective. He met a woman whose fractured mind manifested as precognitive visions, fleeting glimpses of a future teetering on the brink. Corvus himself grappled with the constant hum of fractured voices, the girl's voice a faint but persistent anchor. He learned to focus on her, to separate her thoughts from the cacophony. Slowly, a fragile connection began to form. He learned her name was Anya, a gifted musician whose mind had fractured into a discordant symphony. One evening, as the setting sun cast long shadows across the cave city, Corvus found himself drawn to a secluded chamber. Inside, Anya's fractured voice echoed louder, a melancholic melody swirling in his mind. He closed his eyes, focusing on the music, the emotions pouring from it. Fear, loneliness, a desperate yearning for peace. "Anya," he whispered, his voice barely audible. The music faltered, then a hesitant thought brushed against his mind. Who are you?" "Corvus," he replied, his voice filled with a newfound tenderness. "I'm here to help." Anya's fractured voice trembled with a mix of hope and fear. "Can you? Can anyone?" Corvus felt a pang of empathy. He knew the answer wasn't simple. "Maybe, but we can try. Together." The days that followed were a slow, painstaking process. Corvus spent hours delving into the fractured landscape of Anya's mind, navigating the chaotic terrain of fragmented memories and emotions. He learned about her life before the fracturing, her passion for music, her dreams of composing a symphony that echoed the human soul. One day, as they sat together in the quiet chamber, Anya's voice shimmered with a newfound clarity. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Corvus opened his eyes, confused. "What is?" Anya hesitated, then a stream of images flooded his mind. Images of people in Haven, their fractured minds represented by swirling colors and distorted shapes. There was Elias, his mind a fortress of logic, battling internal chaos. There was the artist boy, his mind a vibrant tapestry of raw emotions. "Our minds," Anya said, her voice stronger now. "They're not just fractured, Corvus. They're a symphony. Each mind a unique instrument, a fragment of what we once were." Corvus felt a jolt of realization. Anya was right. The fractured minds weren't just noise. They were an orchestra in disarray. But with the right conductor, perhaps, they could create harmony again. He looked at Anya, his heart filled with a newfound hope. "We can use this," he said, his voice filled with determination. "We can use the collective itself to heal it." Chapter 5. Echoes of Harmony. A palpable tension hung heavy in the air of Haven. News had arrived. Government forces, alerted by Dr. Chandra's escape, were on their way. Fear, a sharp and unwelcome note, resonated within the collective, threatening to drown out the fragile hope that had bloomed. Corvus stood in the central chamber, the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. Anya, her voice stronger than ever, stood beside him. Together they had formulated a desperate plan, to use the collective itself as a tool for healing. Dr. Chandra paced before them, her face drawn with worry. "Are you sure this will work, Corvus? It's a gamble." Corvus took a deep breath, focusing on the connection he had forged with Anya. He could feel the fragmented minds swirling within the collective, a cacophony of fear and defiance. He needed to reach them, to channel their collective energy for a single purpose, healing. "We have to try," he said, his voice filled with a quiet determination. If we don't, the fracturing will consume everything. Anya squeezed his hand, her touch a source of strength. We're with you, Corvus. He closed his eyes, focusing on the symphony of fractured minds. He reached out, pushing aside the fear and anger, searching for the embers of hope that still flickered within. With a mental push, he projected an image, a beacon of healing light, a vision of a world free from the fracturing. The response was immediate. A wave of confusion rippled through the collective, the chaotic symphony faltering. Then slowly, tentatively, fragments of agreement began to surface. The yearning for peace, the desire for wholeness, resonated with many minds within the collective. Corvus felt Anya's support, her fractured mind amplifying his message. Together they conducted the vast orchestra of minds, guiding the fractured melodies towards a single, unifying piece. It was a delicate dance, fraught with risk. One wrong note, one surge of fear, and the symphony could descend back into discord. The ground trembled, a deep rumble announcing the arrival of the government forces. Panic threatened to rise within the collective, but Corvus pressed on, his focus unwavering. He felt Anya alongside him, their connection a lifeline in the storm. Suddenly, a new melody emerged from within the collective. A powerful mind, previously consumed by rage, joined the symphony, its voice a deep, resonating bass. One by one, more fractured minds chimed in, adding their unique instruments to the growing harmony. The ground shook again, but this time with a different intensity, a counterpoint to the symphony within Corvus's mind. The government forces were deploying sonic weapons, a desperate attempt to disrupt the collective. Corvus gritted his teeth, channeling the collective will to resist. The symphony swelled, a wave of pure light pushing outwards, shattering the sonic assault. The cave city reverberated with the combined power of healed minds, a triumphant crescendo echoing through the caverns. As the final notes faded, a stunned silence descended. Corvus opened his eyes, a wave of exhaustion washing over him. He looked at Anya, a relieved smile gracing her lips. They had done it. They had used the collective to heal itself, to create a symphony of harmony from the chaos. The battle wasn't over, but for now, in the dim light of the cave city, a fragile hope flickered. The echoes of their fractured symphony carried a message, a testament to the enduring human spirit, even in the face of a shattered mind.